Hmm. Well, what a great time to be together with you, asking God to keep bringing healing, keep bringing hope, keep bringing encouragement, motivation, to walk a transformed life, that you would not grow weary in the journey, that you would not go private in the journey, but that you would stay accountable, stay open, and stay committed to doing the work. There's no shortcut to getting freedom from porn or sexual addiction or love addiction. There's no shortcut, and everybody's journey is somewhat different, because we really, you can't really say, well, this is how long it takes. It takes as long as it takes. Each guy is a little different, and so yeah, this particular talk today, called Drawing the Hard Line. This is part 2 of the creating relational boundaries. This is less about pornography online and more about healthy relationships with real people. Or you're fantasizing about real people, because it's not just about what actually happens, but actually what we conjure in our mind. But these are relational boundaries that you and your spouse should agree on. And so, this is part 2 then of developing or understanding relational boundaries. And this one is called Drawing the Hard Line. Part 2, what will be your relational no's that will actually mean no, that I've agreed that's what we're not going to do, and I'm not going to do it. And so just in context, I thought I'd put a biblical reminder in there. And in Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4, it says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking on your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others, putting other people first, having boundaries in place so that your relationship stays strong and is strong, and treating other people outside your marriage with respect. I did give you the Currie's amplified version, applying this particular verse to our context. It goes like this: don't do anything relationally to selfishly get what you want, letting your ambition or addiction drive you. Don't be arrogant or above others, thinking that you can write your own ticket and nobody can tell you what to do. Rather, humbly and graciously put other people first, putting them before yourself, never hurting anyone. Stop being driven by what you want, what pleases you, but instead live with the best of others in mind, really loving them. And so I think that's a pretty fair modern version derivative of Philippians 2, 3, and 4, as we apply it to driving the hard line, as it were, drawing a line in the sand. But I'm going to change it from drawing a line in the sand to putting a mark in the concrete as it sets, and that line is more permanent than just a line in the sand. I mean, yeah, don't cross the line is what we're talking about. So I'm going to, this is designed to be pretty comprehensive, and to be very fair, the final version that I'm going to create when I put these 2 parts together and hand them out to couples in my counseling is I will actually have gone through my boundaries that I operate on to make sure I haven't missed obvious ones. And I operate with boundaries that maybe you don't need to operate on, just because of what I stand for, what I believe, and what I represent. But regardless, these are healthy boundaries. And so instructions, you're going to go through the following statements with your spouse, discussing them to determine as a couple what you will adopt to be particular relational boundaries for you that you'll mutually follow. Both husband and wife will follow this. This is not just creating these boundaries because you're a bad person. Remember, if it's right for one partner, it's right for both. Limits are for the marriage and commonly applied, not just to clip the wings of only one. Mark off each point as you decide on your relational boundaries. So we're going to walk through how to wisely create limits in my interaction with other people, whether it's in person, online, or even in my mind. So here we go. And I would say in no particular order, just as they came to me. So, and I also have the no. Remember, everyone starts with no. So I didn't want it to appear negative because there's a positive statement on the other side. When I say no to this, I'm saying yes to something else. The yes is actually in the document as well. And you by keeping a boundary here, you're making a profound statement that we want you to make. So no relational connection outside the marriage versus I want to be exclusive to my spouse. Relational means any potential path or interaction upon which a person is seeking to gain attention of another person other than your mate. Thus, there's to be no flirting, no innuendos, no affection, no complimenting, no suggestive hugs, no sexual jokes, no teasing, no touches, or any other interactional relational contacting designed to create connection or express interest with an opposite sex person. Remember, RB is relational boundaries. OSB is opposite sex person. That is from before. So keep those in mind. Number two, no risky situations versus I want no appearance of compromise. You can never be intentionally alone with an opposite sex person, period. Notify each other immediately if and when anything of this nature happens, even incidentally. Also, volunteer any occurrence along these lines or when it seems wise to notify your spouse just to be safe. Call to share with your spouse, leave a message or text regarding any situation where you have to be alone with an opposite sex person for any length of time for any reason. No risky situations. Just you and that other person alone, repeatedly and for any duration of time. Number three, no private messaging versus I will be transparent digitally. No texting to any opposite sex person, connecting privately through any social or messaging app or any other means of digital communication. Your spouse should be told immediately if an opposite sex person reaches out to connect with you in any way. Just so you know, I had this high school flame reach out to me on Facebook. I didn't respond, but I wanted you to know that. You can see it because I didn't delete it. You'll see that comes up later. Number four, no secret relationships versus I will share all my interactions. Opposite sex friends are our friends, friends of the marriage, or not friends at all. Donalyn and I have some friends, female, that is a single person, but she's friends of us. She's not just my friend. And so our friends. Add your spouse to any online conversations with an opposite sex person. Always introduce your spouse to those you meet or interacting with in public. You cannot have exclusive or ongoing relationships with an opposite sex person once you're married. There's no such thing as just friends or old friends or a work relationship. Maintain openness, no secret or private relationships. Not one. Number five, about relational boundaries and setting a hard line. No private meetings versus I will volunteer my whereabouts, my activities, and my company. These types of meetings include, but are not limited to, the following: no breakfasts, no lunches, no dinners, no coffees, no closed-door meetings, no after-work visits, no walks, no workouts together, no secret rendezvous of any kind with an opposite sex person, no private visits of any kind, period. Number six, no personal sharing versus I will observe appropriate self-disclosure. Talking to an opposite sex person about your life struggles creates connection. Caution: private conversations that you wouldn't have with your spouse if they were standing there are clearly inappropriate. Talking with an opposite sex person about problems in your marriage is inviting them into your most personal space. No heart sharing or burden bearing. Misery loves company, and shared misery creates closeness. No personal sharing. Now, That's with an opposite sex person. If you got an accountability partner, you're talking about struggles you're having with your wife or whatever. I mean, that's fine. No private accounts versus I will openly live accountable to my mate. There should be no secret financial accounts, email addresses, social media messaging link, certainly no profiles, relational profiles online that are not in full awareness of your spouse. No secrets with money or people. Is it clear yet? Once married, your life is not your own. Two have become one. You belong to your mate and they belong to you. No secrets from your spouse. Number 8, no deleting evidence versus I will reveal all attempts to contact me. It's a violation of trust to delete anything off your phone, your computer, any other device so as to hide something relationally inappropriate. Show your spouse if any opposite person reaches out in any way that breaks this agreement. Deleting the message or text only with your spouse watching. Make no response when someone reaches out to you in a relational way. No response to any relational gestures of an opposite sex person. Number 9, no secret passwords versus I will give access on all my accounts to my spouse. Stop living in secret. Share all passwords of all your accounts of any kind. Nothing is off limits to your spouse. Grant them full access genuinely and freely. You know, it's really interesting as I move this direction with somebody, and, oh, for crying out loud, this is crazy. People are saying because they're defending secret stuff. They got something to hide. But a guy should have some privacy. Like, this is crazy. Don't you trust me? And this. And you live trustworthy. You can see anything you want. My wife has access to my calendar. She knows who I'm with. She has, the location services. She knows exactly where this phone is. And it's funny. She says, "What were you doing walking in the parking lot earlier today?" I go, "What?" She says, "Well, I happened to just check where you were, what was up." And she says, "You were walking in the parking lot." I says, "Well, I wasn't. Sometimes the GPS off a little bit. So I was getting something in the office and I was back and forth to the admin office, back to my office. And it looked like I was walking in the parking lot." It was kind of cute. But you see, there's no secrets. So and that whole thing about grant your spouse access, full access. Number 9, genuine for freely. Sure, go ahead and look at my phone. You don't trust me anyway. Grow up. Here, have my phone. Go ahead, do whatever you need to. Provide your list electronically and surrender your phone whenever asked without comment or resistance. No flirting versus all fun and seductive banter is spousal centric. Stop seeking attention from the opposite sex. Don't toy with the opposite sex like you are free and available. You're not. You're committed to one. Don't interact like you are interested. Be careful on dressing to be noticed by others. You know your intent. Work to stay neutral and not overly engaging to create interest or fish to see if they're interested. No flirting. Number 11, which a lot of you would have thought would be in this earlier. But remember, this is about relational boundaries, but pornography is creating a relationship with people online. That's inappropriate, of course. So no pornography versus I will live with sexual faithfulness. If there's been any kind of past sexual addiction, the goal is complete recovery so as to walk with intimate integrity. Have eyes only for one. Don't chase people in a sexually objectifying way, whether in your mind, online, or in person. Stop all lustful looking. No porn of any kind. End it. No love addiction versus I will pursue only my spouse relationally. You must stop any need or habit to seek to be noticed or affirmed by any opposite sex person. Infatuation must stop even in your mind. If you have a draw towards limerence is you're obsessed with another person. If a certain person has got you fixated, that's called limerence. Break the silence about this crush that's going on. Tell accountability partner, break the silence and say, hey, just, for some reason, this person's been in my head and I want to just be honest about that. 13, no inappropriate affection versus I will reserve relational warmth for one, my spouse. Operate with kindness, but not overly touchy. No inappropriate contact or lingering hugs. Be careful not to be misunderstood with your gestures of warmth. Consider side hugs instead of front hugs. That's kind of how I operate. The exception is if my wife is there, we're giving a hug to people goodbye at the door or greeting people. My wife and I will hug the guy and the woman. So sometimes it's a front hug, but most of the time it's a side hug. It's misunderstood far less. There's not usually any confusion about side hugs. Obviously, no hand holding, kisses, or other opposite sex person body touching. Number 4, no vehicle privacy versus I will travel with opposite sex people in 3s, not 2s. Live with wise limits here. Do not drive alone in a car with an opposite sex person. If there's an exception required, let your spouse know at once. Example, let's just say I'm driving and I see, oh my goodness, that's Tammy, my executive assistant, with a flat tire. I stop and I say, well, let me help you fix that. And it turns out that their spare is flat as well. And I need to drive Tammy home or meet her where, Simon's going to come back and fix the car, later, get it changed. So if I'm driving Tammy to her house on my way home, because I saw her with a flat tire, I just called Donald, hey, Donald, just, I'll be a little bit late. Tammy had a flat tire and I'm just driving her home. So if anybody sees me in a car with a woman, they aren't wondering who's Dr. Dave with. And then, hey, Donald, I saw Dave with this, young blonde redhead girl. Well, it's Tammy. He called me right away, you see. And yeah, so no vehicle privacy. What I call a no-fly zone versus I will end any flames, whether new or old. We got to avoid relationally tempting people or settings. Make no contact with ex-girlfriends or ex-boyfriends. Caution on reconnecting with old friends from high school or college days. The guys' weekend or the gals' weekend for the women that can be chase weekends or party weekends, or what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas style weekends. Got to stop. Grow up and be faithful. Sorry, I just want to fix that. No clubbing versus I will party with my spouse, not others. Come to the conclusion regarding what is going out with friends and what it's going to look like. Ask yourself, why are you going out alone? Discuss what acceptable reasons are. You're not to be having your primary relational needs met by other people, but your spouse. Number 17, no sketchy friends versus I will choose my friends wisely. Limit your friendships to those people who value and respect others and faithfulness to your marriage. If they're given to excessive drinking, drugs, dirty talk, cut them out. If their values don't honor the Lord, be cautious that they aren't your primary friends. If they're uncommitted to their current primary relationship, don't accept their compromise as it will erode your values too. Be really cautious if there's no interest in God and faith. Remember, you will become like the 5 closest friends you hang around with. Number 18, no seedy places versus only establishments with a positive atmosphere. Agree to check with each other as to the nature of the establishments you frequent. If the place is known for moral compromise or marital callousness, avoid it. If it's a bar or restaurant, is it a pickup place or a safe place? Is it a questionable crowd versus a seedy crowd? A steady crowd, steady, healthy crowd. Number 19, no trashing your spouse versus I will encourage my spouse publicly. Obviously, I didn't quite get it all done, but the bottom line is your spouse should never be the butt end of all your jokes. You shouldn't criticizing in public, and work out your issues, your differences at home, not in public, but certainly no trashing your spouse. Because when you trash your spouse publicly, you're giving a signal to other people that I'm not happy with her, so I might be open to something. So you actually may be giving a signal to other people that they might move towards you. Number 20, no imbalanced priorities. Now, this one here could go on forever. Versus, I will carve out regular time for us, you and your spouse. Create time in each other's schedules for your us to thrive. Keep dating. Avoid all time-consuming distractions that take away time for you and your spouse to connect. If you're not going out on regular dates, depending on the ages of your kids, it should be at the worst every 2 to 3 weeks if you have a bunch of little kids at home. But if your children are young and can get with a sitter easy, or your kids are old enough to stay home alone, then you need to be dating at least every 2 weeks, if not weekly. Agree on your social media boundaries. Agree on digital gaming boundaries. Work to have connection time with each other regularly in the evenings, even if it's only 15 minutes on busy days. Imbalanced priorities. You have no time for each other, but you get time for all this other distracting stuff. And it could be, your sports. Could be you're out golfing 2 or 3 times a week. It could be you're out serving other people, like at a church or organization, but you have no time to go on dates. 21, no stranger friends. Versus, I will introduce my friends to my mate. All our regular friendships should be known by each other, whether they're online or in person. Talk about these people. Share who they are. When possible, introduce your spouse to them. But oh yeah, that's a guy you don't know. That shouldn't be a common discussion. They should know. Healthy boundaries is I like to know these people. There's women who say, yeah, I don't want him to be accountable to that guy. I say, why? Well, that guy's compromised. That guy's a dirty talker. That guy, well, he struggles with the same thing. Well, that's not going to help my husband or whatever. And finally, no skipping church. Versus, I will make it my mission to attend regularly. Let your relationship with your spouse be strengthened by consistently going to church together. So if you would imagine that instead of it seeing it as, hard line and a bunch of no's, I want you to make these statements with me in your mind as I read the positive affirmations, all 22 of them through. And tell me if this is not a person heading in a fabulous direction. I want to be exclusive to my spouse. I want no appearance of compromise. I will be transparent digitally. I will share about all my interactions. I would volunteer my whereabouts, my activities, and my company. I will observe appropriate self-disclosure with others. I will live openly, fully accountable to my wife. I reveal all attempts of other people to contact me. I will give access on all my accounts. All the fun and seductive banter will be focused on my spouse. I will live with sexual faithfulness. I will pursue only my spouse romantically. I will reserve relational warmth for them. I will travel with opposite sex people in 3s, not in 2s. I will end any flames, whether they're old relationships or new ones. I will party with my spouse, not others. I will choose my friends wisely. I will attend only establishments with a positive atmosphere. I will encourage my spouse publicly. I will carve out regular time for us together. I will introduce my friends to my mate. I will make it my mission to attend church regularly as a couple and as a family. That is good living. With regard to relational boundaries, drawing a hard line feels a little extreme to some, a little harsh to some, a little out there. But if you're trying to live and walk with integrity, these yes and no's, drawing a line in the concrete that hardens and becomes this way. The longer I've been married to Donna Lynn, almost 49 years, I have no problem with limits and boundaries because I want to live and walk appropriately. I want to live with integrity. I want my kids, my grandkids to all respect how dad operates. And so these healthy relational boundaries, these specifics, as you embrace them and the statement that's behind them, the I will statement, why you're having that boundary, will be a beautiful way to protect and guard your relationship from outside complexities. So, yeah, healthy relational boundaries, drawing the hard line. Let's talk about it.